The night was alive with that electric buzz only old classmates can create. The room pulsed with laughter, glasses clinking, music from our college years echoing like an old friend. Everywhere I turned, people were leaning in close, swapping stories about who they were back then, as if time had folded in on itself. I held my husband's hand a little tighter, smiling when he smiled, though inside I felt like an outsider peeking in through the glass. This was his world, his memories, not mine. I told myself I was happy just to be here for him, but a part of me knew something about the night felt unsettled. He, of course, was in his element, moving through the crowd like he'd never left, shaking hands, slapping backs, laughing as though not a single day had passed. I watched him, admiring how easily he slipped back into this version of himself. And then there was me, adjusting my dress, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear, trying to mirror his ease. I reminded myself that this was his night, not mine, and I wanted him to have it. But still, under my smile, a strange unease curled in my stomach, whispering that the night was going to test me. And then I saw her. Taylor. The name alone carried more weight than I ever wanted it to. His ex, the one who had broken his heart long before I came along. Her entrance wasn't dramatic, but it was impossible to miss. She glided in with a smile that seemed polished, practiced, almost too perfect. The moment my eyes landed on her, my chest tightened. I could feel it in my bones. This night wasn't just going to be about nostalgia. It was about to become something else entirely. At first, I tried to convince myself I was overthinking. Maybe Taylor would just nod politely and keep her distance. But deep down, I knew better. I could feel her eyes sweep across the room before locking on me, that calculated smile never slipping. And when she started walking in my direction, my pulse quickened. My husband didn't even notice. He was too busy catching up with his old buddies, completely oblivious to the storm heading my way. When she finally reached me, she tilted her head, like she was already sizing me up. Her voice dripped with sweetness, the kind that coats poison. "Lily, right? I've heard so much about you." The way she said it, as if I were some footnote in a story she still believed belonged to her. I forced a polite smile, but I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. My instincts screamed at me to stay calm, not to give her the satisfaction of knowing she'd rattled me. Around us, the laughter and chatter carried on, but suddenly it felt like the room had shrunk. It was just me and her, standing there, bound by a history that wasn't even mine. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe I was just insecure. But as she leaned closer, her perfume invading my space, I caught the glimmer in her eyes. Not warmth, not nostalgia. It was something sharper. Intentional. She wasn't here just to remember the past. She was here to rewrite it. I straightened my posture, refusing to let her see the flicker of doubt inside me. "Yes, I'm Lily," I said, my voice steady, though my hands itched to tighten into fists. Her eyes skimmed over my outfit, pausing just long enough to make me feel like I'd been weighed and found lacking. I told myself not to take the bait, not here, not now. But the way her lips curved into that smug, knowing smile told me she was already planning her next move. My husband finally reappeared at my side, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Taylor, wow, it's been ages," he said, his tone far too warm for my comfort. She leaned in to hug him, lingering longer than necessary, while I stood frozen, my chest tightening with every second. When she pulled back, her gaze flicked toward me, triumphant, like she'd just claimed her territory. I forced a laugh at something I didn't even hear, trying to mask the storm brewing inside. It was in that moment, with his arm casually resting at my back and her eyes fixed on me like I was the outsider, that I realized this night wasn't just about old friends catching up. No, it was something far more dangerous. A stage had been set, and Taylor had already taken her position under the spotlight. And whether I was ready or not, she was about to drag me into her performance. It started small, almost harmless, the way she slipped her words into the air like smoke. "That dress." "Bold choice," Taylor said, her smile widening as a few people nearby chuckled, without realizing they were laughing at me. My stomach tightened, but I pretended not to notice. I told myself not to ruin the night, to let it roll off my shoulders. After all, it was just a comment. But then came another. "You've changed so much since college, haven't you?" she added, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. And the way she said it, it wasn't curiosity, it was a blade. I tried to breathe through it, telling myself I was being overly sensitive. But the way people shifted their eyes toward me, some smirking, some awkwardly turning away, told me they'd heard the jab exactly the way she meant it. I gripped my glass tighter, the cool stem grounding me as I fought to keep my composure. My husband stood by, laughing at some inside joke with another friend, completely blind to the cuts being made at my expense. I wanted to tug at his sleeve, to make him see what was happening, but something inside me whispered not yet. Taylor leaned a little closer, lowering her voice just enough for the words to slice right through me while still being audible to the few standing nearby. "You were never really his type, you know. Everyone knew it back then." My breath caught, my heart pounding in my chest like it was trying to escape. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about her rewriting his story, our story, right there in front of everyone. And for the first time that night, I felt the spark of something dangerous rising inside me. I swallowed hard, willing my face to stay calm, even though my pulse was racing. "Funny, I don't remember asking for your opinion," I said lightly, though my voice betrayed the tremor I was fighting back. She laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the chatter around us, drawing more eyes our way. I could feel the heat crawling up my neck as people leaned in, curious to watch the scene unfold. It was as if Taylor had been waiting for this moment, waiting to make me small. And then she struck deeper. "Honestly, Lily, you were the safe choice. After me, he didn't exactly have options. You were convenient." My heart dropped, the words echoing in my head like cruel bells. A few gasps rippled through the group, and I swore I heard someone whisper under their breath. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to meet her gaze, even as shame pressed down on me like a weight. She wanted me to crumble, to break apart here in front of everyone. I clenched my glass so tightly I thought it might shatter in my hand. My husband was only a few feet away now, still oblivious, still laughing at some story from the past. I wanted him to hear, to see, to step in. But he didn't. It was me, alone, facing Taylor's carefully crafted cruelty, and with every word she dripped into the room, I could feel the walls closing in, daring me to either retreat or fight back. Something inside me snapped the moment I saw her smirk. "Convenient?" I repeated, my voice louder than I intended, slicing through the room's chatter. Heads turned. My husband finally glanced over, confusion flickering across his face. But Taylor, she looked delighted. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted, me, raw and exposed in front of everyone. My chest burned, my hands shook, but I refused to let her see fear. "You think being cruel makes you powerful, Taylor?" I said, each word trembling but sharp. "Because all I see is a bitter woman still clinging to a past that doesn't belong to her." A silence rippled outward, people shifting uncomfortably, some avoiding my eyes, others watching with wide-eyed fascination. Taylor's smile faltered just for a second before she masked it again. That second was enough to tell me I'd struck her where it hurt, and then, without warning, she grabbed a glass of red wine from the nearest table and hurled it at me. The liquid splashed across my chest, staining my dress, dripping down my arms. Gasps echoed around us as I stood there, drenched, humiliated, my breath caught in my throat. The room spun, and all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. She had won this round, or so she thought. Because even through the sting of humiliation, something colder, sharper, was beginning to take root inside me. I couldn't breathe. The wine clung to my skin, sticky and cold, while laughter and whispers erupted around me. My cheeks burned, but not just from humiliation. It was betrayal that stung the most. I bolted from the room, pushing past the curious stares, my heels clicking against the floor like they were announcing my shame. The night air outside hit me hard, cool against the heat of my face, and I let the tears spill freely. For a moment, I just stood there, trembling, wishing the ground would swallow me whole. Then I felt his hand on my shoulder. My husband had followed me out, his face etched with concern, or at least I thought it was. Relief washed over me, because surely he had seen, surely he would tell me I wasn't crazy, that Taylor had crossed a line. I turned to him, my voice breaking as the words poured out. "Did you hear what she said? Did you see what she did to me in front of everyone?" My chest heaved, desperate for him to share my outrage, to stand on my side. But his expression didn't match the anger I expected. Instead, his brow furrowed like I was the problem. "Lily," he sighed, "you always overreact. Taylor didn't mean it like that. You know how she is." His words sliced through me harder than Taylor's ever could. The man I thought would protect me, defend me, had just chosen her over me with a single sentence, and in that instant, something inside me shifted. My heart, cracked and trembling, hardened into something else. Resolve. I stared at him, my tears freezing on my cheeks. Overreact? My dress was ruined, my dignity dragged across the floor, and somehow I was the one at fault? His voice, calm and dismissive, felt like salt rubbed into a wound I hadn't even had the chance to cover. I had always known Taylor was cruel, but hearing him excuse it, seeing him defend her, was a betrayal I never thought I'd taste. It hollowed me out in an instant. Memories flashed like lightning in my mind, our wedding day, the promises he made, the nights I stayed up late to help him through hard times, the quiet sacrifices I thought he never noticed. And now, all of it seemed to crumble with just a few careless words. I could feel the weight of every time I had settled, every time I had silenced myself for the sake of peace. And right there, dripping in red wine beneath the night sky, I realized peace had never been mine to begin with. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. His touch felt foreign, wrong, like it belonged to someone I didn't recognize anymore. Inside me, something unfamiliar stirred. Not just anger, not just heartbreak, but clarity. If he couldn't stand beside me when I needed him most, then he didn't deserve to stand beside me at all. I inhaled deeply, wiping my face, already feeling my tears dry into steel. This wasn't going to end with me running away. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see my husband. I saw a man who still lived in the shadow of his ex, a man too weak to cut the ties that should have been severed years ago. My chest no longer ached the way it had moments before. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, like the eye of a storm. My heart wasn't breaking anymore. It was hardening, reshaping itself into something I could use. He tried again, brushing off my pain with that same tired sigh, as if my humiliation was a burden he didn't want to carry. And in that instant, I knew I had been carrying both of us all along, through the bills, the house, the endless compromises. I had built the life we lived in, brick by brick, and he had the nerve to act as if I was disposable. No, that would end tonight. I straightened, squaring my shoulders, and caught my reflection in the dark window beside us. I didn't see a victim staring back. I saw a woman who had just remembered her worth. My voice was steady when I finally spoke, though the words weren't for him. They were for me. If Taylor is so harmless, maybe you should go back inside and stand by her. Because I'm done standing alone. And with that, I turned, my heels clicking against the pavement, each step carrying me closer to the moment I would stop running and start fighting. When I pushed the doors open and walked back into that crowded hall, every head turned. Whispers flitted across the room like sparks, some pitying, some curious, others waiting for the drama to unfold. My dress was still soaked, the red stains clinging like proof of my humiliation. But this time, I wasn't shrinking from the attention. I welcomed it. I held my chin high, my shoulders back, and let the silence ripple as I stepped further inside. Taylor's eyes widened for just a second before she recovered, pasting that smug smile back onto her face. She thought I'd stay outside licking my wounds. She thought I'd hide. But no, I walked straight toward her, the weight of the room following every step. My husband trailed behind me, looking uneasy, but I didn't glance at him. Not anymore. This wasn't his stage. It was mine now. I stopped in the center of the room, cleared my throat, and raised my voice just enough to cut through the music and chatter. One by one, conversations fell silent. "Since everyone here seems to love a good story," I said, my voice smooth but sharp, "let me tell you exactly how tonight has gone for me." A murmur swept through the crowd, curiosity tugging them closer. And in that moment, I realized I finally had their attention. Not as his wife, not as Taylor's target, but as a woman about to reclaim her power. I let my gaze sweep across the room, meeting eyes that quickly darted away. "Taylor," I said, locking onto her, "was kind enough to remind me tonight that I was never the first choice, that I was convenient, and when words weren't enough, she poured her wine all over me." Gasps echoed, some heads shaking, others staring at her in disbelief. Taylor's smile wavered, but she didn't speak. Not yet. I wasn't finished. "You all saw it," I continued, my voice steady, even. "Every cruel word, every jab meant to humiliate me, and maybe once upon a time, I would have let it slide. I would have gone home, cried, and told myself to keep the peace. But not tonight. Not anymore." The hush that followed was heavy, pressing down on every corner of the room. People shifted uneasily, waiting for the explosion they could feel building in my chest. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my husband step forward, his lips parting as if to rescue the moment. I raised my hand, stopping him cold. "And you," I said, turning to him, my voice cutting through the silence. "You stood there and let it happen. Worse, you defended her." A ripple ran through the crowd, like the collective intake of breath before a storm. My heart pounded, but my words were calm, deliberate, slicing through the air with precision. I turned fully toward him, no longer caring about softening my voice. "Since you think Taylor is so harmless," I said, each word deliberate, "why don't you stay with her tonight? Because I'm done being the backup." The words cracked through the silence like thunder. For a moment, the entire room froze. You could have heard a pin drop. Then the whispers began, low, sharp, spreading fast, like fire catching on dry leaves. My husband's face drained of color, his mouth opening, then closing, like he couldn't find a single word to save himself. Taylor shifted uncomfortably, the smugness gone from her face, replaced with the wide-eyed look of someone caught in her own trap. Around us, classmates exchanged glances, some hiding their smiles, others shaking their heads in disbelief. I stood tall in the center of it all, no longer their spectacle of pity, but their witness of truth. And in that charged silence, I felt something ignite in me, a strange, exhilarating freedom. I wasn't clinging anymore. I wasn't begging to be chosen. I had already chosen myself. So when I turned and walked toward the exit, the sound of gasps and murmurs trailing behind me, I didn't look back. Not at Taylor, not at him. Because I knew, deep down, this was only the beginning of what I was about to take back. When I walked out of that hall, I felt lighter than I had in years. The night air wrapped around me, cool and cleansing, as if the world itself was applauding my choice to walk away. Behind me, I could still hear the muffled buzz of whispers, but they didn't belong to me anymore. They belonged to him and to Taylor. Their shame, their spectacle. Mine was the quiet strength of a woman finally done playing small. The days that followed were a blur of whispers and phone calls. Word of what happened spread like wildfire, faster than I ever could have imagined. Old classmates reached out, some with sympathy, some with admiration, all with stories about the look on his face when I left him standing there. And every time I replayed it in my mind, the humiliation of that wine-soaked moment faded, replaced by the image of me walking away with my head held high. But I didn't stop there. No, I had more than pride to reclaim. I had proof, stacks of bank statements and contracts that showed the truth I'd quietly carried for years. That house we lived in, I paid for it. Every mortgage payment, every renovation, every dime. And now, with the sting of betrayal still fresh, I finally put those papers to use. The day I stood in front of the judge, documents in hand, I felt no fear. just certainty. My husband tried to protest, fumbling through excuses, but the truth was written in black and white. The house was mine, always had been. And when the gavel struck, confirming it legally, I felt a rush of vindication so pure it nearly brought me to tears. Not the broken kind of tears I shed outside that reunion, but the cleansing kind, the kind that tastes like freedom. He looked at me as if the floor had vanished beneath him. His voice cracked, his eyes darted, but I didn't flinch. I had given him too many years of patience, of compromise, of silence. This was my moment, and I claimed it fully. Outside the courthouse, I inhaled deeply, the sky brighter, the air sweeter, like even the world itself knew I had won something bigger than just a house. I had won myself back. That evening, I called the locksmith. One by one, every lock in that house was replaced. I held the new keys in my palm, cold metal warming slowly against my skin, and I knew they weren't just keys to a building. They were keys to a new life, one he would never step into again. That night, I walked through the front door of my house, with a bottle of wine in hand. The same deep red that had once humiliated me now poured smooth and rich into my glass, a symbol I was reclaiming. I settled into the quiet, the kind of silence that didn't feel empty anymore but peaceful, whole. Every corner of the room looked different, brighter, because I knew this space belonged only to me now. Outside, the world went on as usual, but in here, I felt untouchable. No footsteps trailing behind me, no sighs dismissing my feelings, no shadows of an ex hovering at the edges of my marriage. Just me, my glass of wine, and the steady rhythm of my own heartbeat. It wasn't loneliness, it was liberation. A calm I hadn't realized I'd been craving for years. I sipped slowly, smiling to myself as I turned the key in the new lock one last time before setting it on the table. The door was shut, the past was shut with it, and I had no intention of opening it again. He could live with whispers and humiliation. I would live with peace. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd finally, truly won.